Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the Hangout. It's Sid, and if you love music as much as I do, well, this is the perfect podcast for you. Today, we've got a talented local singer-songwriter who truly sings from his soul, and like when you listen to his music, it's just like your breath is taken away because it's just so flawless. We chatted back in 2017 for the first time, and it honestly seems like worlds ago, but I'm so excited to have Mathew V back, and welcome to the Hangout. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. You are like, I just see us in our 90s sitting on a front porch doing some sort of a podcast, like telling kids to get off our lawn. Like we're gonna always catch up. It's always such a pleasure to chat
I
with you.
love that. I love that. Oh my God. Thank you for coming and thank you for chatting. I want to talk about your brand new single, Halo. It is so empowering and just the independence. Oh my God, so good. Do you want to talk about kind of like, I guess, start the process of songwriting and lyric writing behind that?
Absolutely. So Halo kind of started, I think, at like the same time that the pandemic started. And I had just finished up an album, and my album Two Face came out, and I was kind of wondering where to go from there. I had originally planned to go and travel, and I had trips planned to Los Angeles and Toronto and London. I was going to go make all this music, and then it started to look like that would be a while away, and I needed something to keep busy, and I definitely didn't want to wait like a year or two to start new stuff again. So I was listening to music, and it may have shown up on like one of those recommended playlists for me, but I heard a song by an artist named Logan Prescott, who I absolutely fell in love with it right away. I was like, oh, this is so good. And I sent him a message on Instagram and said, hey, I think your stuff is great. If you ever want to work together, let me know. And just throwing a feeler out there, didn't really think anything would come out of it, but just wanted to let him know that I appreciated his music. And I think like probably a month later, we were sending voice notes back and forth. And we made a few songs for this upcoming project just via FaceTime audio and me humming into my phone and sending it to him, and then him humming a few lines on it and sending it back to me. And then he produced the track in Houston and Dallas and sent the track to me here in Vancouver. Then I went to the studio and tracked all the vocals and sent it back to him, which the entire, project that I've worked on has been done that way, which has been great. But also now I'm wondering, like, am I never going to travel again now that this exists? Like,
we don't think of that. We don't think of that. We're hopeful.
Yeah, it's such a functional process, and it was a cool way of doing things, but also making music is such like, and with the people that I make music with, it's such a bond building experience. So it's so strange to have built that bond exclusively over the internet, to have never have met this person that's been such a part of this new phase of music for me. But it's been exciting as well to be able to adapt and pivot and to be able to make that work and make something that I've been proud of.
Nice. How is it to like kind of adapt? Because I guess obviously everyone would usually be in the studio or everyone would be in the recording room together, but now everyone's just like worlds apart. How is it adapting?
It's been strange. The process has moved a lot slower. Just because if you have 5 people in a room together, you can get something out by the end of the day and then slowly chip away at it as time moves on. But when people are in different time zones, in different cities, everyone's like maneuvering their own daily schedules. And then I'm sending a voice note. It's like, okay, send it, wait 2 hours to get something back. Oh, I'm at the grocery store, but I really have this idea. So let me hum it to you like in my jacket and then send it back to you. And then get kicked out of the grocery store because I look so strange, like coming into my jacket. But it's been interesting. I really enjoyed it. I'm trying to take a mental note that like I don't want to do it forever, because I do really enjoy being able to be in the room and build those connections. So I'm hoping in a post-COVID world that becomes reality, but I don't really count on anything anymore. So I have my fingers and toes crossed for that.
The eye contact, that's honestly what I miss. Just like actually genuinely having those conversations with people and looking them in the eye, because like sure, I'm looking you in the eye right now, but you have no idea. It just looks like I'm looking at you through a screen. So,
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it. Like I even when I catch with people on FaceTime, I'm like, do I know how to maintain natural conversation anymore? I'm like, am I going to be able to make eye contact without feeling strange and awkward? So I guess that's to be determined. But yeah, I completely feel you.
Back in 2017, I asked you where or how do you draw a lot of your inspiration? And you said the grocery store. So I'm glad that you are still doing a lot of your voice memos in the grocery store. Are you still drawing? Are you still drawing like a lot of your inspiration from like what you're seeing on the shelves, or do you just get your best ideas while you're in the grocery store?
It's all food. It's always food. Food is it's always the most inspirational thing for me. No, I think it's that, especially in COVID times, but also in any time when I sit myself at a piano and I'm like, okay, it's time to write something. It feels forced. It's never really flowing as well as it would be in a situation where I'm not thinking about it. It's the least opportune time possible, which right now especially is like my only outing is to the grocery store. So it's like it's the least like my hands are full of whatever like I'm doing in this large hall at Costco or wherever I am. Like I don't have space to grab my phone and do anything. And then I'm like, oh, and there's a chorus in my head. Why does this happen right now? So it's less that like, oh my gosh, like that cheese has made me feel something emotionally, and more it's just like the random little sparks of something in your head. Like, when you're about to go to sleep and you're like, why did I have to think about my tax return from 2016? It's like, where did that come from? So I think that's kind of how song ideas kind of like pop up to me in the least opportune times right now. But it's very welcomed, if anything, if I get to be out of these four walls for 10 minutes.
I love that. You said I think in a previous interview, you mentioned that you were working on an EP as well during this pandemic time. What can we expect from that? Is it going to be coming out soon? How far along is it?
Yeah, so the EP is finished, which I'm really excited about. It's been a lot of sending things back and forth, so I'm happy to have it in my back pocket. I'm really proud of it. I think that probably throughout my my musical journey, every project I'll say, well, it feels like my best project, because hopefully that means that I'm improving. But it feels at least at this stage of my life, the most me. It's music that I really wanted to make. It's music that I really want to listen to, and I think I'm sitting back into really being a singer songwriter, and really I've put in a lot of work on vocals and being able to sing, and that's how I emote and tell stories. And so I've really kind of tried to flex a bit of a vocal muscle on this music, I think it's more grown up, it's more adult, but I guess we'll see if people pick up on that or not, or maybe I'm just getting old. But yeah, I feel really excited about it.
You're literally not even old, so don't even worry. Like, don't.
Thank you. I was setting that up. I'm like, that's exactly what I needed to hear today. Awesome. Thank you.
So for those who don't know, you do have like an operatic background. How do you think your vocals have kind of changed over the years? Because now you've kind of gone into like more pop, R&B, soul sort of sound.
Yeah. So I think that the base for me with my vocals has always been from that training. Often people say like, oh, you sound like a trained singer. And I think that's because I have a big vibrato, and all these different things that, you can pick up in my voice come from that bass training, which over time, as I've built my own style, has almost broken some of that down. It's funny when I listen back to old recordings, because I think that my voice is just my voice and it stayed consistent, but I do hear the differences and the changes. I think recently, like, I've gotten a bit more grit and a bit more growl that I think I'm like leaning into and I'm actually really enjoying. Hopefully that means that I'm doing a healthy grit and growl, and it's not like, oh my gosh, my voice is tired growl. But I'm enjoying the progression as things change and evolve naturally. And I think the good thing is that I'm singing every day, whether that's in the shower, whether that's here, there, everywhere, and just kind of being able to monitor that change.
Has it been difficult for you to kind of stay and keep that stamina while being in this sort of like pandemic and everything?
That's an interesting question, and I think I posed that to myself as well, because like last year I went on a 38 show tour, and that was like a test of, in however many days, back to back singing in the cold of winter. I was like, oh, this is the Olympics of vocal stamina. Like, I'm going to make sure that I can do this, that my voice is healthy and I'm doing it properly. But it's been over a year since that, And I'm singing every day, but I'm not singing at the level of what a tour would be. So I think there's been an aspect of, vocal health that comes from vocal rest. I'm at home by the water dispenser all the time, so I'm like staying hydrated, all that
Staying
good stuff.
hydrated. Love it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that I've been thinking about it too recently, which is that I've just done so much recording this year. Um, so I'd like to think that my voice is staying up in shape. It's just recording and playing live are different things. So hopefully I'm, building stamina for studio vocals during this year, since I'm certainly not on any stages right now.
That's awesome. How has it been? Because you recently posted a studio vertical video on your Instagram, being able to kind of get into that live performing aspect again, but then also just not having that like same audience like
Yeah.
receiving that end. So how has it been?
Yeah, so we went and tracked this promo video, and it was the first time that I had really played with a live instrumentalist since shows shut down, and we were talking about it in the moment. It was so strange to be playing music in the moment, to be singing and playing. So it was a weird feeling. It definitely gave me a bit of a wake up call that it took a lot longer to get into that, to get my voice warmed up, to get ready to do that. I think that a lot of artists may hit that potential wall as shows start happening again, but it felt great. I'd love to do more of it, so I'm hoping that light at the end of the tunnel is just inching closer every single day.
Totally, we need it now.
Yeah.
I want to rewind to your album that you released last year, Two Face. The painting portrait, please talk about it. It's so gorgeous.
Awesome. Okay, so this the artwork for Two Face, originally we had artwork for Two Face that was a photo, and it was all done up. And I received a DM from a wonderful artist in the States. I believe he's from Nebraska, I think. But and his name's Harrison Hebb. And he sent me a message, and he said, I'm an artist. I love your stuff. I feel inspired by your music, and I would love to paint album artwork for you at some point in your career. And I saw his stuff, and like my jaw dropped. I thought that it was so amazing, and I was so honored that someone that was so talented would appreciate my music. And so I said, I'd love to. We have artwork already, so there's the issue, but if you really want to do this, then I would love to make it work. I'm like, if you want to beat the artwork that we have, then I'd love to give you a shot. And I want to make sure that if you're going to put all this time into making this amazing product, that we're going to use it. So I'm like, let's just talk concept, let's talk color scheme, let's talk what angle of my face I think looks best. And I'm like, and so we went back and forth and checked in along the process. And then when it was done, I was just like, oh, it's a no-brainer. Like, I think that he did such an awesome job. Harrison Hebb, I was so pleased with his work. It was awesome.
How long did it take for him to create that?
Well, when he sent me a draft, it was like 15-20 minutes where he just like kind of sketched up this draft, and that obviously wasn't the final product, but it was like so quick. And I was like, wow, this is someone that like the level of talent is just kind of like next level. Because like I can't even, like, since high school I've been able to write my name because I don't like write anything on paper. So to see someone that has such like an eye and a brain for that level of visual talent was so impressive. And then I think he chipped away at it over a few weeks until we got to the final landing place. But it was so special for me because I'm someone that I live albums both through how they sound and also through how they look. It's like the most iconic album for me. I kind of cherish that artwork. That's why I love having the vinyl. So I can like hold it in my hands and see it and like look at all the graphics on the back. Like it's such a iconic like marking point for those records and for that music. So I'm so happy that I have that stamp.
Well, even on your Instagram, you always do the record face-offs, which are always so cool to see, kind of like people's responses and everything. What are your top 3 records that you own or loved listening to?
Oh my gosh. See, this is like choosing between my children, which like I guess I'm going to do now. So I'm not ready for parenthood.
You have to choose 3, just only 3.
Okay, and this is gonna, like, people are not gonna be happy with this, especially like vinyl aficionados are not gonna be happy with my choices here. But I'm imagining, I'm like, okay, the whole collection's on fire. Which three am I grabbing? So the first one is gonna be the Pussycat Dolls, because I spent an arm and a leg on that on eBay because they sold out.
Ooh.
Um, and so that was a nice gift. Which again, like vinyl aficionados are not gonna be like cheering me on for my Pussycat Dolls choice on vinyl. Like we're not getting like the nice fuzz when we play that, but listening to Buttons on vinyl, yeah. But Pussycat Dolls would be one. Oh gosh, what else am I taking with me? Um, Probably like a Celine Dion record. I'd have to go through and like really pick, but I think that like Celine Dion is my iconic childhood artist. And then Come On Over by Shania Twain, I think is like the best entire record of all time. So probably those three would be my go-tos. Although if my vinyl collection's on fire, I'd probably just like put as many in my arms as I could.
How many vinyls do you have now? How many has like accumulated?
So we counted it the other day, and I pre-COVID I only had like 4 or 5 records, and I didn't collect. I didn't have any of them. And then I had all this time and all this time to like sit on the computer and look at stuff. And my partner really enjoys music. And once we got like our 10 favorite records, we were like, okay, now we need to find every record that we've ever liked moderately. So I think we counted the other day, and there's like we have over 150. So
Wow.
yeah, we are running out of space. So I'm hoping that I like stop liking music at some point here because we don't have room to start storing all this stuff. But so yeah, it's been a quarantine hobby that should probably stop soon.
For music lovers, it's literally like collecting action figures at this point.
100%. And that's the thing. I'm like, oh, I can't not have this record. You know, it's
Yeah.
like I loved it, and I had all the other ones that I liked. So how could I be missing this one?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that one's good. Oh, but that one had one good song, but I love that song. So I've lots of ways to convince myself to grab them.
I love that. Back to kind of the artwork. We have a common love for Disneyland, and at Disneyland they have the animation classes. Please.
Yeah, the Animation Academy.
One of our favorite spots at Disneyland is that animation class. What was your favorite Disney character or Pixar character to draw, sketch, learn?
I love this. Okay, so I'm full-fledged like a Disney adult now. Like we have the fact that it's been a year in this pandemic, and we felt the fact that like we haven't been in a year because when the pandemic started, we were in Disneyland and then we had to get home because they were like everything's we were there in like February. So when we went on the trip, no one was talking about COVID. And on the way back, like there were airport scans. We were like, oh, what's happening? And it was wild. So it's probably been about a year. I miss it. The Animation Academy, like we go to Disneyland and we spend half our time sitting in this class drawing stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm just very competitive. So like my partner and I would always try to like draw better than each other. I think I remember drawing Edna Mode, which was really fun. And then Big Hero 6, I think was probably the only one that I won when we asked like cast members outside like who did it better. So that one probably has a special place in my heart. Next time I need to bring like bribe money so I can pay people to say that my drawings are better. They're definitely not.
I feel like that could be like a full-on vlog series, like just going to Disneyland, having like a competition of who can draw the best or whatever. That would be
I'll do my vinyl face off, but with who drew Edna Mode better. So
yes.
it'll be
okay, guys, we're coming up with concepts, content. Yep, that's awesome. I love that. Absolutely. I love how you guys kind of ended like your last place was in Disney before everything kind of went to hell.
Well, yeah, it was wild because we were in LA, I think, for 5 days. I had something to do down there, and then my partner came down and we went to Disneyland, and truly, like, news hadn't broke about the coronavirus outbreak before we left. And I remember mid-trip, we were like, oh, look at this weird, like, flu that's happening overseas. And then when we came back, it was like, it's in Chicago. And we were flying up from a US airport. So everyone was, and I remember because we had bought a set of masks and we had them on. I've never like had to wear like a surgical mask or anything like that before in my life. And when we got home, my mom was like, "Oh, you have that on backwards." So we had the mask inside out the whole time. But I can laugh about it now. But at that time, it's like no one was talking about masks. No one had ever had to wear a mask, or at least no one that I knew. So it was a bit of a learning curve. But yeah, I'm happy that we got to end it at the happiest place on earth, which has been closed ever since. And I mean, understandably so. But
Yes.
I'm looking forward to the moment that it opened.
Oh man, yeah, I think everyone was kind of shocked to hear that all the Disneylands were actually closed. Because like I guess they hadn't closed it for I don't know how many years.
Well, that's
like,
the thing. I mean, Florida persisted, which is like, I mean, compare Florida to California, but I think Florida might have stayed open the whole time. But I'm also not like necessarily a Disney World person. I've never been to Disney World. I have like the nostalgia of Disneyland being like where I went as a kid, being something that you can do in 2 days, not like 2 weeks. So
no, Disney World is like it's a full-on expedition. Like you have to like trek from park to park, and it's just it's too exhausting to like tackle in like maybe 5 days.
That's what I've heard. So I'm like, I always have 2 or 3 days to hop down to Disneyland, but I'm like, I don't know if I have like 10 days to 2 weeks to go and like chip away at like 900 acres of all this stuff.
They keep on adding more and more and more, and you're like, okay, wait, I didn't even get to this point. Stop adding stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh.
Oh man, I also want to talk about your love for Peppa Pig and Meryl Streep, just because those are also just iconic like characters and humans, and I just want to let you know that I stand that you stand them.
I mean, name a more iconic duo than Peppa Pig and Meryl Streep. Like, we need a Peppa Pig movie where where Peppa's voiced by Meryl Streep. Like, I think like I need to just manifest that out into the universe. But no, I'm just like, I think I walk a fine line of like thinking that I'm very classy, but also like partaking in like meme culture. So I don't know where those two things mix, but it's probably at loving Meryl Streep and Peppa Pig in the same sentence.
We found the line. We found the line.
Yeah, where two worlds collide.
I love that. For the Hangout, we always want to see how artists are impacted by music in different ways. How do you think you personally have been impacted by this art form throughout your life?
Oh, interesting. Like in terms of like doing music, or in terms of like how I listen to music and how it like impacts me?
Both. Because I guess it impacts you differently if it is through listening and then actually creating it.
Absolutely. So I think from creating music, it truly gives me purpose. I acknowledge the fact that you know, lots of people in life aren't fortunate enough to have something from birth that they just love doing from start to finish. Lots of people have to like go on their path and try different things and find really what their calling is. And I'm very fortunate that I always knew that this is what I love to do. And I think for me, every day that I get to wake up and make music, I wake up excited. And I realize that that's not the case for everyone, so I don't take that for granted. And for me, like listening to music, kind of like it walks the path. It sets the marker for what I want to create. Like when I hear Celine Dion sing, right? If I hear anyone sing and I hear and it makes me, it like punches me in the gut, or like it makes my heart just like ooh woo, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like floodgates are open. It's just
Yeah. Whenever I get that feeling, it's hard to describe in words. I know what the goal is for me to strive towards, as to that's what I want to evoke in someone, whether it's one person, two people, 20 people, it doesn't uh, it's all the same from that end. But for me, that's the benchmark about how I want to be making music. So listening to music for me is such a healing process, but also a bit of a way to kind of study how I want to make music, and if it's making me feel that way, why.
Do you find it easier when you're songwriting or does songwriting help you share your emotions more so than just like talking about it and everything?
I mean, I think that there's pros and cons to each, because I'm definitely someone that like will talk about any of my issues with loved ones and friends, and I think that that's a healthy thing to do. But music and writing isn't necessarily as much about the words for me. I've never necessarily taken on songwriting from the poetry standpoint, which a lot of artists do and a lot of writers do, is they, really go into the words. And for me, the words are a way to help carry the way that I sing it. I could sing the phone book, and if it's the right vowels and syllables, and it's the right consonants, and it allows me to, and it's the right melody to carry how I'm feeling, I feel like I could communicate to you how I'm feeling singing A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's just how I'm singing it and the melody that I'm singing it with. I feel like you would get kind of what I'm saying. So for me, the words have always been a way to carry how I'm singing something, which is why, again, I'm happy on this new music that I'm going back to really singing, because I think that that's one of the ways that I communicate through music, at least strongest.
I love that. That's so interesting because I guess your vocals are your transportation in the music.
Absolutely, 100%.
I love that. That's so cool. What do you think was like the earliest memory of music for you? Like, when did you find that love?
People get annoyed with me because I say this in all interviews, but I don't have another answer, because I probably from age like 0 to 5 exclusively saying "Man, I Feel Like a Woman" by Shania Twain. I used to put like a pom-pom on my head as like a wig, and then my family played that song out, like CD destroyed. It's the only, like, my home videos are maybe like me blowing out a birthday cake and then 8 hours of footage of me singing "Man, I Feel Like a Woman" by Shania Twain. So I think it like shaped the way that I like formed melodies, and I'm lucky that I'm not like as an adult only knowing one song. Like I did branch out eventually from that. I think that Shania Twain is an artist that like really emotes through her vocals, and especially in those peak years. And I can hear like Gen Z listening to this being like, "Who's that?" Like, this is where I feel my age. I'm like, is Shania Twain an artist that like I mean, Sid, tell me, like, did you grow up listening to like Shania Twain or Celine Dion? Like, what were your childhood?
Yeah. Like QMFM radio. That's where I would listen to. I would fall asleep to listening to like all of these like 80s hits as well as like the modern day hits as well.
There's taste there.
It was just a lot more ballady and just a lot more singer-songwriter influence compared to the music that's on the radio today. And that's why I feel like I navigate towards more like these sort of singer-songwriter and like music influences and stuff. So I don't know. Yeah, I did listen to it. I have an older sister as well, and my parents love like the old hits. So that's where I feel like the music is really like powerful in that sort of sense.
But I mean, that makes sense to me as to like where the bridge to like Shawn Mendes standhood went, because like he has like lots of like classic quality in his voice and his storytelling, and like he does in terms of like, modern music, like he focuses on like melody and ballad and like really having that arc. So I'm seeing all these connections being made. It's making sense to me.
Well, it's funny because like I guess like I haven't talked a lot about this like publicly or whatever, but it's like just like Shawn's music came at like the perfect time where I needed it. So it's like that sort of connection. And like sometimes people just see it as if you're just like a fangirl or whatever, and you just like love this person just because they're like gorgeous or something. But it's like it's just so much more. Like, and that's why I think like talking about music and talking about this sort of impact is so important, because you never know why someone loves something because you just see the surface level, and that's the first thing that people jump upon. So
absolutely. And I think and it's easy for people to say that with any of these like heartthrobs or any of these, it's easy for people to write them off because it's not necessarily their stands. But I think that I see music, and especially albums and artists, as like musical Polaroids of a time in my life. Like every time that I hear "Give Your Heart a Break" by Demi Lovato, I am back in my childhood bedroom. Like it takes me back to great, because I listen to that song over and over again, and it has marked that time in my life. Like when I hear it, I'm not in this space anymore. I am in my bedroom, and it takes me there because like I listen to it so much in that space that it takes me there. Or the song that I listened to when I broke up with my first high school boyfriend, like I listen to it so much that if I hear that song now, those emotions are carried with it. And as you said, like in this time in your life, you needed it. And I think that like it'll mark these formative years when you get to hear this music. I think that that's a really beautiful thing, that it's like a picture of this time in your life through these records.
I love that analogy so much because I feel like there's also just so many different ways to interpret music, and just like a Polaroid is like such a like point. Like that's literally how it feels. That's so cool. Yeah. Oh man, that's so cool. Um, oh, I don't even know where I was going with this anymore, but just like music as a whole, it's just so cool to talk about.
Well,
Damn.
I think that, and that's the thing. And as I've been collecting vinyl and going through all these old records, I'm realizing now that it's brought up, certain records really do hold a place in my life. And I'm like,
Mm.
and they mark this place in my life. It captures that time where I'm taken back immediately to where I was when I was listening, where I was in my life emotionally, physically, when I'm listening to this music. And I think I talked about that, or I sang about that in this EP a lot, which is like how spaces, places that I was in these times, whether it was the house that I lived in or the city that I grew up in or the school that I was in, those places mark and carry a lot of emotional memories for me. If X, Y, or Z happened in this house or in this school or in this place, or if I went through, coming of age or a bad breakup in this space or in this space, that energy kind of lingers there for me. If I were to go back to my hometown or any of these things, it would evoke a lot of emotions. And I think because these places, just as music does, it marks different, you know, formative moments for me and formative emotions that I think kind of linger there. So I think I dove into that topically as I started making music.
Oh, I love that so much. Do you ever listen to songs and I guess like the memories change over time when you revisit these old songs?
I think for example, like 1989, I
Mm.
couldn't really listen to that record a whole lot because I lived in London, and like when that record came out, and I listened to it every single day walking around the outer circle of Regent's Park, and like anytime I heard it, it would take me there immediately. And then I
Mm.
think I saw, some concert footage of her playing it, or like I'd seen it in a new light, or maybe it was recently when she was re-recording everything. I dove into the records, and now it's like I'm in a new apartment and I'm hearing it here, and it's making a bit of a new Polaroid now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm having formative experiences to this music again, kind of getting to rewrite that story. But yeah, it's a really cool concept that we're going back and forth on right now, because I think it's something that I've thought through and kind of played with this year, and it's something that at least is definitely sticking true to me, and it's exciting that the music can kind of have that power.
That's so cool. I this is why I do this podcast at this point, because it's just so cool. Like I don't even know how to describe it, because every single person you talk to, they see music in a different way, or they've connected um songs and like lyrics and melodies with different things, and like it's crazy to see that sort of impact, because you think that when you listen to this song, that's how everyone else sees this song. But
Yeah.
it's just so different. It's so different.
Absolutely, and it's yeah, and even just from a creating music standpoint, like when I'm in rooms with other writers, how we'll hear a chord progression and then our minds will immediately go to different spaces as to how
Mm.
we would, build a melody on top of that, or what story that would make us want to tell.
I think, is there anything else for music that you feel so strongly to talk about
I
that I
think
may
we
not
dove
be
into
aware of?
such giant like universal concepts here.
Yeah.
That was a really great chat. But I mean I always have great chats with you, and I know I told you before we jumped onto the podcast, but you just like have such a great light, and you ask such great and thoughtful questions, and I think that anyone that I know in the music industry has nothing but good things to say about you. So thank you for having me as a part of your wonderful world, and for I'm truly honored always to be able to chat with you and to be watching your journey through this. So thank you so much for having me involved, Sid. It's such a treat.
Well, thank you so much for joining the podcast. That was Mathew V on the Hangout.